Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to ChannelBK. My name is Brian. Sorry, it has been a while. Things have been crazy. Things have been happening, but we are here. What's on repeat is still here. Josh is here.
Yeah.
You know, we
Hi.
you already know the vibes, and we are here to do a year-end what's on repeat. Now, we're gonna do a little different. We didn't want to talk about too many albums because we don't want to spoil our lists, and then we didn't really want to talk about singles because we thought it was better just to kind of be like, let's just focus on the albums. Uh we know there's a bunch of albums coming out next year already. Like we've already been hearing things and hearing singles, but we're like, let's just focus on albums that are out that we are listening to from October to December. And
Yeah.
then we're going to do kind of a quick recap to start off, and then we're going to trade off back and forth. Um, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I could speak for both of us, but I think this year overall, just artistically, like for even for me, like movies and stuff as well, I think this was a pretty good year. Like going through all the albums that we've talked about and albums that we've discussed, or maybe albums you and I have kind of talked about, albums maybe that are on our lists that we didn't really talk about because, maybe they're not albums that we like go back to all the time. I feel like this year was like really good, and it felt like there was a lot. It was a good mix of people returning that we've been not hearing from, people we know, um, maybe some newer artists, kind of new exciting stuff, different genres. Um, I don't know if you would
Yeah.
agree with that sentiment, but I feel like
Oh no, I see it.
so. How do you feel?
Oh yeah. I mean everything you said, I pretty much yeah, I pretty much feel you. Because I think in terms of how our years might have went for us personally or something like that, like that's kind of its own story. But I think in terms of just like albums and songs, like this year's been, I think, like I'm gonna make a bold statement out of the years for this decade so far, this might have been my favorite, like in terms of just the music. And I'd say as of like yesterday, I pretty much have my songs and my albums list like locked in. And I did it was this is one of those years where uh ranking albums has been a little bit of a pain in the ass to a degree, because uh 'cause there's some albums, like there's some albums I've been putting a little higher because I felt like I really like this album and I feel like it deserves better than what it's already getting. Or or there's other albums that I've had to put lower because like maybe I hadn't listened to them as much, or maybe it's just an album that I still really like, but maybe it's died on me a little as the year went on, as others kind of grew on me. Like my top 10, like I had to make a couple of significant changes with that. I've been really happy with the music I've heard this year for the most part.
Well, and
Yeah.
like you were even talking about just having like the way you've ordered albums. We talk about this on the show all the time, where it's like the albums we go back to, the albums that I think we appreciate, but they're maybe not albums that maybe you always go back to, but it's still great. And then the albums that are very overwhelming to go back to, but they're good, but it's like I don't know if you're gonna keep going back to them. So it's yeah, it's been a very, like, even in that regard, I think this year, like you going through my lists, I'm like looking and I'm thinking like I have such a mix of like, oh, I'm not going to go back to that much, but it's still great for what it is. Oh, this album I listen to every day. Oh, this album's underrated. Like it's been a fun year, and a lot of albums have been kind of neck and neck. Like I think Josh is going to be surprised because he actually asked me a couple questions recently about some of them, and there's some questions that have different answers now because my fault, like I've been catching up finally on albums and finishing my list, and some of these albums kind of didn't make it. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess those albums that I was like, I don't think they're going to be on the list. I'm like, oh, I think this is going to be on the list now. So let me find a spot for it. But yeah, so we didn't want to pick too many albums. We also didn't want it to be this weird situation where like we try to figure out like the albums, the best albums we wanted to pick to highlight the end of the year. I think all four of these albums we're about to talk about, I think we all Josh and I genuinely really at least like. I think this is the first
Yeah.
time in a bit where it's like we've listened to all of them and we both agree pretty much, maybe not to the highest, like the same as each other, but we definitely agree. Which makes me happy because the first album I want to talk about is a band that Josh has kind of been up and down with ever since I've introduced him to them. And I remember he messaged me about them on their new album. And he's like, dude, this is actually pretty killer. Like, it has a cool mix of genres on here, and I like it. Losing
Yeah.
What We Love, the brand new album from Knuckle Puck. I'm gonna be honest, I think this might be their best album. Like, I really love 2020, and obviously their debut is great. Their second album was something that I think people kind of were like on the fence with. I still really like it. The thing that I like about this album is, even though a song like The Tower doesn't carry over for like the entire album, I think that kind of edge still is on here. Like, Losing What We Love, the self-titled, like just the energy of that song, the slow, moody intro, and then it's like that groove is great. You and I think is a really great, catchy tune. Again, like Knucklepuck is still gonna bring catchy hooks, they're gonna bring catchy tunes. But then we get something like Groundhog Day, which I think is a song that it was a single when it came out. And I didn't love it like that. And the more I listen to that song, the more I'm like, this song rocks. Like, I love like the verse chorus, where it's like big and it's like driving, and then it's the Groundhog Day. And then the second half, like that whole part is incredible. I think the build there is fantastic. I really like the actual sequencing of this album as well. I think it has a really good vibe. I think A New Beginning is obviously a very good start to the album. I really enjoy it. Again, I brought up The Tower. October's great. As we get towards the second half of the album, something like Out of Touch, I think is great. I think the kind of swinginess of it and the fun, like it kind of has like a fun vibe to it, but lyrically it has some like deeper stuff to it as well. um Worlds Apart is a great song. I think Fool is an interesting song to end the album on too. It's the most unique song I think they've put out. That probably sounds the most like The Tower, but it doesn't. Like, it has kind of this like sludgy groove to it. It sounds like kind of like a old 90s alt rock song in a way. It's very unique. Um
Sure.
I don't know. I think this record is just really great, and it was shocking to me because when I introduced Josh to them, 2020 was still definitely a poppy pop punk album. Like, it was poppy, it was punchy, it had great hooks. It was like, that's where that was. This album I think is darker. It has a lot, like the darkness kind of lays over the album with the lyrics and the sound of it. I think this album feels like it's not like every song feels like a single. Like, 2020 felt like every song was like a single. It had sort of a sound and a vibe to it. This album feels like a complete kind of package. It feels like each song leads into the next, and it's this whole piece. And again, like, you see the cover, you hear the name of it. And honestly, for a pop punk band, not like a Jeff Rosenstock, but like in this style, you go, okay, Losing What We Love, that sounds really corny. What is this going to be? And it's honestly very good. Like, I think there's certain cliches on here that they run into. That's how pop punk is. Like, obviously, you're going to have those moments that are kind of whiny or all that. But I think they still do it well. It sounds well. And I think this is the best they sound as a band as well, too. I think probably since because I know everyone flips out over their first record. Everyone loves their first record. And so I think this record really solidifies them because They went to Pure Noise this time, which is where a band that you love so much, Spanish Love Songs, is on. An artist I listen to, Corey Wells, is on there as well. And they really do a good job kind of pulling in these artists that do some of those similarities, like the kind of pop punk stuff, but they bring sort of the alt rock stuff and kind of, like
Oh
some
yeah, like I brought this up, like Midwest emo, something like that.
exactly like emo music as well. So like it was a smart move for them. And I think this is a smart album for them to put out as their debut album on Pure Noise. Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Knuckle Puck. I love them. I'm actually really glad that Josh was into it because even listening to it, I was like, I think you were gonna like this more because it definitely has it has more bite to it, I think, than their last record.
Pop punk, I yeah, I've only heard listened to maybe a few albums in that, but I think probably like maybe besides Jeff Rosenstock, this is probably my favorite album for like that particular genre this year. And yeah, and like you said, I mean, definitely not quite like in that Jeff Rosenstock vein, but still like kind of it definitely like looking back at their last record and comparing it to this, this definitely feels like more like mature and
Mhm.
refined and in a weird way, I think this album is better than than like Spanish Love Songs like own new album this year.
Mhm.
So yeah, that definitely is that definitely is proof of how yeah, they pretty much got me now with this new album for sure.
I'm glad. So okay, so what is your record that you want, or your first record?
Well, I know it's definitely another one that you really really love. And it's an artist that we haven't heard from since his amazing debut in 2017. Like it's been 6 whole ass years since
Hmm.
this guy put out an album, and but he's back with his sophomore, and it's pretty much as great as we both hoped it would be. And that's Sampha with Lahai. So this album, to the whole Knuckle Puck thing, I feel like Sampha as well is kind of doing something a little different from this album from like what his first album was. Because his first album was relatively stripped back, kind of alternative R&B singer-songwriter record, and like obviously like many people, I really love him for his vocals and like how he writes and in terms of like the writing and kind of the emotions behind that album, that was given that it was like inspired by the loss of his mother along with a few things, like it was a genuinely just heartbreaking listen. And that project and basically his grief was kind of the drive for that album. But this record, uh, by comparison, I mean, there's definitely elements that we kind of know from him, but this album sonically is like it's more dense, it's more layered, and just his arrangement game is like taken to another level on this album. Like it's just beautiful the way these songs kind of go from one section to the next. Like Spirit 2.0 is a good example where hearing that as a single, I was kind of like, okay, I don't know if I'm in love with this, but I am happy that he's back and this does sound interesting. And frankly, I didn't even know this album was coming out like mid-October until the day it comes out, you're messaging me being like, Sampha dropped, and I'm like, oh shit, like I've been anticipating this album like you, and I missed that. Like, what the hell? But of course, yeah. Thank you for reminding me, because yeah, because this album is pretty damn great, and I just think so. But anyway, just to Spirit 2.0, like hearing it on the album, like hearing it as a single, I was kind of like, okay, but hearing it now, I'm like, I genuinely love this track. Like just the way that it builds and just his vocals on here, and he's even kind of doing a semi-rap performance near the end,
Mhm.
something he hasn't really done before, but yet he like he like kind of nailed it.
It kind of
And
sets
then
the
like
tone for the album too, I feel like. Like a lot of what that song's doing, I think really kind of bleeds over into the album too. Like you said, like the following song, Dancing Circles, he kind of does a little bit of that. Only he's kind of like doing a little bit of like a rapping thing too. But
yes.
Super 2.0 is like the perfect, like it's dreamy, it's spacious, it's layered, it's like it feels very long and he's doing all these things and like just the way he's delivering these lines and it's like it's crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because like another song that does a lot of different interesting things, like Jonathan L. Siegel, like which that song, I mean, just all the things going on vocally on there, like the group vocals that open, and then like his solos singing the way it's like like yeah, just his melodies on it are great, and there's like a female vocalist like near the end that I thought sounded really nice, and like the way it goes from like these like just the keys and the piano just like boop 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 boop. But then the drums come in and there's like some acoustic guitars in the mix, and yeah, it's just yeah, it's a well structured track. But Can't Go Back is probably my favorite song on here. I mean, just the "Can't go back, don't care if my brain keeps saying can't go back." Like, yeah, just the way that he just stacks his vocals like that, and yeah, and just like there's like a breakbeat section, and then there's just like I love how the strings just kind of like slide in like near the end, and so and yeah, it's definitely a really yeah, yeah. Like it manages to be kind of like weird, but also just catchy. Like I have it stuck in my head. And yeah, I think this album, um, maybe was a little hesitant to say it maybe on my first couple listens, but now I'm genuinely like, as great as his debut was, I think this album might be even better because I just think I'm and maybe it's just because I actually haven't listened to his first album in a while. I mean, I would imagine it holds up pretty well, but like I definitely think this record just I mean this is just an album that I discovered something new with every listen.
Well, like, and you were talking about his debut as well, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of like, so it won the Mercury Prize, and it reminds me of
Yeah,
the Young Father's debut, which won the Mercury Prize. And I think what made those albums unique for people is it's how focused they are. Like the albums feel very like it is what it is. It's focused. Each song is what it is. This album just feels like it's this dreamy sound, and Sampa is just leading you on this magical journey for 40 minutes of his songwriting, his vocals, and you're just kind of like there for the ride. You're just like, "Oh my god, this just sounds incredible." But it's like experimental in parts, and like you said, there's certain things he's doing where you're kind of like you think of like Nobody Plays Me Like the Piano, and
yeah.
you're just like 7 years later, like you said, Spirit 2.0, and it's like, someone gets me. Oh, ba 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 ba. Ooh. It's like so crazy. And yeah, it's one of those, it's kind of that Frank Ocean moment. And I'm like, you know what, Sampha? I'm okay that you took this long because this album is awesome. So I'm glad that it turned out that way. Um, uh, Next artist though we'll talk about is not really an artist. The other artists we're going to talk about as well. They're not really artists that are like that. They don't just kind of disappear. They're definitely they're putting stuff out, especially who I'm going to bring up, one of the more prolific people who will just put out stuff constantly. And it's a solo studio album since 2020. Obviously he's done stuff since then, more electronic stuff, and A Beginner's Mind, which is an album you and I love. It's the new Sufjan Stevens record, Javelin. I was really excited because when they said, like, look, this is singer-songwriter Sufjan, I was like, let's fucking go. That's my top Sufjan to me. And So You Are Tired came out, and I was like, and it has kind of those little parts at the end where it gets a little big, a little dramatic, a little anthemic, the little electronics. And I'm like, ooh, this is nice. I am not going to lie, though, which is funny. I've never told Josh this. When the other songs started coming out, I really liked them, but I'd get frustrated because I really, really liked the parts where it sounded more stripped down. And I was like, oh man, because then like I was like, okay, so it seems like this album's gonna be like he's doing the singer-songwriter stuff, but he's combining it with like it feels like it's gonna be a this is who I am as an artist. He's an electronic artist, he's kind of a pop artist in a way. Like the Ascension was like kind of like a pop album, and then we got singer-songwriter, right? Sufjan's just all over the place. Then the album comes
Yeah.
out, and right before I listen to the album, I see his post. And the internet kind of has had jokes about it where it's like, is this song about another man or Jesus, right? Like that's kind of the game people play because everyone kind of knew Sufjan was gay. And like, I don't care. Josh doesn't care. We're not those type of people. It's just, it was always fascinating to me. Like, it was just like, he just kind of was who he was. And then the fact that he came out the way he did by dedicating this album to his partner who passed away. And the
Oh
fact that
yeah,
I
you
was
got
like,
me. You got us right here, Sufjan.
I'm about to
Yeah.
start crying now because then he got that disease where like he couldn't even walk. And like
Wow.
he was talking about how like this album's for him. And so like right before the album started, I'm like, great. So now that I know this, I'm gonna have a different mindset of what the album is. Like, oh my, the I heard that piano start on Goodbye Evergreen, and I was already like, okay, I'm ready. Here we go. And obvious, like, so everyone said, I think the best stuff about this album. Like, I think I'd be so redundant. I will say though, Shit Talk is definitely one of the newest highlights of Sufjan. That song is
Oh yeah,
beautiful,
I agree.
kind of heavy. It's raw,
Oh
like
yeah, yeah. And
guitars
I
that
think
like, yeah.
I think I may have seen reading the liner notes. I think it might be Bryce Dessner of the National fame playing those guitars on that
And
song.
I can see that. I can definitely see that because it's like it kind of reminded me of stuff that he did when he did that album, the Planetarium album. It kind of gave me some vibes of that, but it's
Yeah.
like it's doing the singer-songwriter stuff where he's playing, the guitar, no more fighting, no more. It's like you get that, and then when it's the ooh, ooh, it's like, okay, here's the poppy electron, and then those guitars, and then I will always love you. Oh, and you're just like, what? And it's like this big eight. And like when I saw the track list and I saw that was the longest song, I'm like, okay, there has to be something about this song that's gonna be like in your face. And like, damn, dude, like I'm not gonna jump off a bridge and say this is like one of his best songs ever. I think it's definitely one of his newer best songs, though. Like in recent,
True.
like it's, I mean, because we know he's put out like what at this point, 5,000 albums. Like he's just put
Yeah,
out
yeah. I
so
haven't
much
even
shit.
heard all of them.
But like
Yeah.
songs like everything that rises, and the way like when he gets those high notes and you can tell like he can hit them, but like it's not 100% perfect. And he's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, oh my God, this is gorgeous. And like his writing on here is like some of the best writing he's had in like so long. The following song, Genuflecting Ghosts, the way like Like the vocals and the way it builds and like when the drums kicking, I'm like, that sounds so good. And then I will say the song that I still get mad about only a little bit because of the fact that it has all that stuff at the end is Running Start. Because let me tell you, the like first minute of that song where it's just the guitar and he's one of like it's gorgeous. Like I love the songwriting. Like I think I have that whole part stuck in my head because I listened to just that part so much. If I'd imagine myself peaceful on the fire escape, and then the way and his writing too. Like, and he's like, now we have a running start. My body moves in mystic ways. I'm like, I'm about to fall in love with you, dude. Like what? Like, oh my God. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's I'm gonna go
Oh
on
yeah, yeah.
album. Like,
Yeah. I think it has to be said. You know maybe a little too much about this album because I didn't really know much about that stuff. Even though I knew so even though I definitely knew that I was really into this album too.
I will say, I think one of my favorite lyrics of the year is by a poet. His name is Mr. Sewell. His synonym is Mr. Brown. And it goes something like this. This is what we call a transition. I got a Mexican homie named Chinese Mike. And there, ladies
Oh,
and gentlemen, in non-binaries leads us to our final album we're going to discuss, which is
oh yeah, it's Danny Brown with yeah, in Italian, 40 is Guaranta.
Mhm.
Um so I guess technically I was already spoiling the fact we were going to be talking about Danny Brown because yeah, I have Scaring the Hose right behind me. It's his crazy, amazing, fun little like collab album with JPEG Mafia. And this album, I was not ready for this kind of album coming from Danny. So Tantor was the lead single, and I think after hearing the whole album, that might have been a kind of that might have been a slightly misleading choice as lead single because
I can
like
see that.
I because this song is like this album for the most part is kind of introspective, low key, and mature Danny. And this track definitely is more in your face. Just that beat from The Alchemist, just the bum 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 bum. Like, yeah. It just sounds like it sounds just kind of evil and just him dropping punchlines like this that Black Lives Matter, still sniff cocaine, pay for a therapist, but I still ain't changed. Um yeah, and then we also have YBP with Bruiser Wolf, which has like it's a great contrast of like a really fun beat, but like very just sad and dark lyrics and like that and Bruiser Wolf like dude isn't even like rapping. Like he's just going on the song like Detroit City, that's where I live. Who can French some word in the hood with an eye on me, Rodney Pete. Like I'm not on here just like being a goofball. Like that's just how he flows, and yeah, he's
Kind of
wild.
like an E. It's
Um
kind of like an E40 thing. Like that's kind of how
yeah.
he is. That's how I got reminded of, or who I was reminded of.
And then Jen's terrific vacation with Casa overall. I think that's how you say his name. Like just the hook on that song alone. I have had that stuck in my head because it's just like, what you gonna do? We we move on out. Like, yeah. Yeah. I just have that in my head and just yeah, it's kind of this album gets kind of jazzy with certain songs because like this track with the pianos and the drums and so drums. But then again, I think this Casa, yeah, I have a feeling he I have a feeling he might be like a jazz guy or something like that, since he's the one doing like the beat on here. Um, so the first half, judging by just these three songs, kind of seems to have more of what people are just used to from Danny Brown. But then in the second half, he kind of doubles down on the low keyness a bit, like a song like Down With It, which where he's kind of talking about his struggle with depression as well as like a relationship that maybe didn't exactly pan out for him, over top of a beat that like has this is kind of like psychedelic kind of dreamy vibe to it. And technically he was already doing stuff like that before. It's just, yeah, it's just done in a way that's maybe just a little more like uh just kind of mellow in a way.
Mhm.
Uh and especially with those last two songs too, like Bass Jam as the closer is like the bass is just like boom 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 boom. Like this kind of sounds like something I could see like King Cruel on or something like that, because it has kind of this like lumbering, just uh kind of just feel to it. Like you could see him on the beat like, yeah, it's 3 a.m. Like, yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Like, yeah, yeah. Oh, it's funny. I sound a bit like Billy Woods doing that, but but anyway, cool way to end the album. And I love how he's kind of uh talking about how through all the like highs and lows of life, like music has always like been there for him. And yeah, like you don't think of Danny to make songs like this that are this just like beautiful and kind of just soothing, considering he also did Atrocity Exhibition, which is like one of the like weirdest, darkest like albums. Like he's that not just he's done, but yeah, but probably one of the most just like out there for that style of hip hop in general.
Well, and I was gonna say when you were talking about it being more serious, it's like what I'm saying was kind of the transition, because that album was the same thing where like Q-Tip was the executive producer, so he probably kind of kept it focused. And there's funny songs on there, right? Like Dirty Laundry is great, but that album was him kind of being like, I'm a little more serious. I kind of want to, it was still fun-ish and kind of out there, but it wasn't like it felt a little smarter. And like you said, scaring the hoes, which by the way, I just realized something. JPEG Mafia, Danny Brown, JPEG reps Baltimore, and Danny Brown reps Detroit. So
oh yeah, yeah,
technically,
that is true.
technically we're the white versions of scaring the hoes. I think that's what that
Oh
means.
yeah, yeah, sure. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh man. Oh yeah, I did actually have that thought a few days ago, and like I just forgot about it. And then you reminded me, like, yeah, I'm
I'm like
Peggy
sitting
and you're
here and
Danny.
I'm like, how did I come up with that? But
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
said, like that album was just them being like, we can go on whatever we want. So let's just make a weird ass album, right? And then yeah, this album, it's like what I'm saying is still a little fun and kind of bubbly and upbeat and weird, but it's serious, right? This album, it's like kind of uncomfortable because like some of the beats on here are not like necessarily Danny Brown beats, and then he's rapping in a way where he's just like, yeah, I'm from Detroit and things are crazy, and you're just like, where's the part where you talk about fucking like an old woman? Like, wait, I'm waiting. But like it's like the
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
where it's like you have to accept he's getting older. That's the point of the album. Like
Yeah.
listening to this versus 30 is probably like night and day different, right? So like I think that's part of the point is he's getting older. He's sober now, right? Like I know he said he went to like rehab and stuff. So, he's cleaning up, and like even the cover of it, he looks not like how Danny Brown used to look with the crazy hair and like what we know of him. and it is really cool, but it's weird, but it's that weird feeling of like, oh my God, Danny Brown's like, he's like maturing, and it's just so strange. But I do agree. I can understand why the single did what it did because I really liked it. It feels like the beat kind of gives me like blaxploitation feels. Like I could see it being like the opening to like a blaxploitation film, just like how epic and how like dun dun dun, like it feels like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's like when I heard The Alchemist did it, I'm like, this is not like what I think. When I think of Alchemist, I think of like dreamy and psychedelic and like
And
I
kind of
mean, I guess
grimy
I mean, I
too.
guess technically it is like a usual beat of his because yeah, that the with the sample, yeah, a lot of his beats sound like a movie for sure.
A little golf clap. 2023, everybody. 2023, it's over. We
Yeah.
had we started the show saying that we really love this year. It's been crazy. It's a third year now we've been doing this. And it's been, well, no, four, because we start because 2020. Yeah, so it is, so it's 4 years now. And it's been crazy. It's been a great journey with the
Yeah.
home. But yeah, check out our other episodes from this year. So maybe you could see some other albums. Maybe you'll get a sneak peek a little bit into some albums that'll be on our lists.
Yeah.
Josh's lists are going to be out sometime soon. My lists are going to be out sometime soon as well. Check those out when they are out. Like and comment and subscribe and check out Josh and all the good things. Just thank you. Just thank you. You're all awesome. And thank you for sticking
Yeah.
out with us for another year. I'm going to be getting some classic album reviews coming
Cool.
up soon, too. It'll be a good one. It's going to be kind of busy, though. So hopefully I can get all that done in a good amount of time as well. Josh, do you have anything else you want to say before we send it off?
Thanks for tuning in this whole time to What's on Repeat 2023. Yeah, it's been a good journey for sure.
It has. And Josh and I have already kind of had conversations. We're gonna see what next year is. Maybe, we're open to conversations. We may change things up. Maybe we'll take a little bit of a break. We're still here though. We're not
Yeah.
breaking up. This friendship's still here in our hearts.
Yes.
Here,
Yes.
right
Yeah.
here. But we have said that we were gonna kind of discuss some stuff once the holidays are over. So yeah, oh yeah, have a good holiday, all that stuff. Good new year. Be safe. Have fun. Thank you for tuning in to Channel BK. Peace out.
Peace out.